Hey everybody, this is Christian Buckley, and I'm here with David. David, hello.
Hi, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. And how are things out on the East Coast?
Good, busy, which is always good. We wish the weather would turn spring-like and stay spring-like, but we're dealing.
It happened out here too in Salt Lake. It was like, I don't know what it was, like 70 degrees, 68 degrees, wearing a t-shirt. Next day, 2-3 inches of snow on the ground. And then it warmed up again, and then it snowed again like 3 days later. And it's like, what is going on? Now, my excuse is that we're in the, the mountain desert. And so, and my first experience with Utah bizarre weather was August, going camping in the mountains here. And growing up in Northern California, in August, there is zero chance of there ever being rain or any kind of moisture in the Sierra Nevadas. And we got hailed on, snowed on in the Wasatch Mountains. So, anyway, David, why don't you introduce yourself and your area, what you do, where you are, all those kinds of things.
Sure. So my name's Dave Patrick. I was awarded the MVP for Office Servers and Services, aka, well, my particular specialty is SharePoint. I've been in SharePoint since it came out in beta, Tahoe, back in 2000 it was. But I do a lot of stuff. I do a lot of SQL Server. I did 10-year stint as a SQL Server DBA, database developer, ASP.NET, C#, web, cloud computing, Azure. So, I've got my fingers in a lot of different pots, but they're all Microsoft pots. So my official title at work is a subject matter expert in Microsoft technologies. So I work over at APG, which is Aberdeen Proving Ground. I'm a contractor for the U.S. Army. I've been doing that for the last 6 years. And I've been loving it. I was worried that going to work, I actually started my career off working for the U.S. Navy a lot of years ago, and did it for about a year and thought, government, it's not fast-paced enough for me. So I left that, went to the commercial sector for 25, 30 years. And just like I said, about 6 years ago, I went back to the government sector. So let me try this. But they've got a renewed energy. It's way different than my first experience.
Most of the, certainly in military, most of the various branches, I mean, they've got cloud initiatives. I mean, they're pushing to go and be on the cutting edge of technology. While there's still a lot of bureaucracy, there's some things that move, a little bit more slowly. And I think that it's healthy to go and do the risk assessment and understand the spend and all those kinds of things. And I think a lot more commercial businesses would be healthier had they done that. But at least, I mean, you are playing with some of the latest, greatest technology. You're not on, SharePoint 2010.
No, we're not. We're on 2013 at my, it's weird. I've got 10 or 12 Army organizations that are my customers. My main customer is an Army organization that is an IT shop. They call themselves Miltech Solutions. So it's an interesting situation in that Miltech Solutions, being an Army organization that is staffed by mainly contractors, but behaves like a contracting company in that they don't have a budget. They have to go out to other customers and get reimbursed for any work that they do. So it gives that level of energy. We're constantly out there trying to push the new technologies, trying to figure out how we can improve productivity, because our customers, if they don't like us, they will dismiss us. And we've gone between, at any given point in time, we may have between 8 and 16 what we call consortium members. So we had this consortium, and each, CERDEC is one, the Communications Electronic Research Development Engineering Command, PEOC3T is another one. So we've got all these different organizations that will join the consortium, and because they want to get SharePoint 2013. When we started, they were all SharePoint 2007, and we made them leapfrog over 2010 right to 2013. Now we're looking at 2016, but then there's been these rumors about 2019 coming out sometime soon. So we may leapfrog again. We're not sure, but it is exciting times. They're looking at Office 365. They're looking at Skype for Business. So even though they're cloud cautious, right? We can't just jump into the commercial crowd.
There's a hashtag right there I need to use, cloud cautious.
Yes, we're cloud cautious. We've been mandated. The government has been mandated to go to the cloud by the U.S. president, not just the current one, but the one before that. So we've been taking a look at it every year and preparing to go to it. And for the last few years, we write waivers to say, well, not yet, security reasons, but soon, any minute now, I feel we're going to pop and have to go to the government cloud, both Azure, Office 365.
I'm writing this down, this note here, because I think it's a hashtag hybrid SharePoint, hashtag cloud cautious.
Right. Yes.
Need to go
Yes.
So, yeah, that's nice. So, I mean, so you've been in the space for a long time. I mean, so I used to say, and it doesn't sound as much of a latecomer. Like I started really digging into and did a deployment of SharePoint in 2005. And I used to say that I was kind of a, late bloomer in the SharePoint world compared to a lot of the MVPs and, and kind of when they started. And now you've got, talking with MVPs and talking about their different areas of focus and be like, oh, so were you using this, years ago? It's like, no, actually it was just a handful of years ago. And, which is also, it's great if for those that would be interested in becoming an MVP and want to learn more about that, you don't have to have, 10, 15, 20 years of experience in, that technology if it existed, that there are a lot of people that are doing a ton of stuff for the community that have been in the space for 3, 4, 5 years. So
yeah, exactly. In fact, it's funny because I started out with SharePoint when it came out in beta. We were a Domino's shop, Lotus Notes Domino's. Yep. And so we naturally had two teams, one doing the IBM stuff and one doing the Microsoft, and I was on the Microsoft team. And they were eating our lunch. I mean, we were trying to sell, team services and implement it and all that. And Notes was the true and proven. And then we also had, we were trying to do ASP, not ASP.NET, but ASP solutions. And Cold Fusion was coming around and just eating our lunch. So around when SharePoint 2003 came out, I kind of abandoned it. I was like, you know what, this is just I'm spread too thin. That's when I did my 10-year stint in SQL Server. I said, I'm going to focus on SQL Server. I know SQL Server. I'm going to go out there and just do nothing but SQL Server installations. And I did that for a few years. And then SharePoint 2007 came out. And it kind of returned to its, it said, hey, we're going to use SQL Server as our database. We're going to use ASP.NET, right. The web framework, the same web framework that ASP.NET, web parts framework. So I was like, great, now I can get back into it. I kind of ignored SharePoint 2003. And so really anyone that's got into it, like I said, even in the last 3 years and is passionate about it, has been able to kind of make a difference. Yeah. I'm friends with a lot of the fellow MVPs in the area. I'm in the Baltimore area, so we do a lot of up and down the East Coast, SharePoint Saturday, Baltimore, SharePoint Saturday, New York, SharePoint Saturday,
I was just chatting with Shadid last week as well.
Yes.
So I've done Baltimore, SharePoint Saturday Baltimore a couple times. In fact, one of my most memorable, I'll say that, most memorable SharePoint Saturdays was when it followed the week of the Best Practices Bill English's conference over in, I'm trying to remember where it was in Virginia. But anyway, so it was that week. I got violently ill.
Oh.
And so I couldn't fly, but I still, I had my hotels booked and it was out of pocket. I'm like, I'm going to go anyway. But I was literally in my room sick went downstairs, did my session, went back upstairs, best practices, and did the same thing in Baltimore. So it was so memorable because it was just a horrible experience. And thankfully, my fever broke and everything. I was able to fly home when I was scheduled. But I mean, that was early on too. That was one of the larger SharePoint Saturday events. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's funny. We can draw quite a crowd anywhere near the DC corridor. So even though it's Baltimore, it's close enough to DC that we get a decent crowd. So yeah, I've just been loving the community, the different folks in the area. They all kind of, we see each other at the different ones, and we all kind of band together and go, hey, yeah, so I love it. It's funny. You talk about how people who've only got a few years can contribute and get their MVP. So I did, as I mentioned, I did a stint. I got my first MVP back in 2009, and then that was actually in Microsoft Great Plains Dynamics.
Oh wow!
Right. And then I quit that job, and I wasn't working in that, and I was kind of spread over a bunch of different technologies. So I didn't get an MVP for many, many years, even though I got nominated a couple of times for SQL and back in 2005.
That's actually a good point. Some people don't realize that. So I mean, did you just have that for 1 year or?
Yeah. So 1 year in 2009, 2010.
And then didn't get renewed for that.
and didn't get renewed because I wasn't doing it anymore. So it was I was like, yeah, I'm not doing Great Plains anymore. So that makes sense.
Right. And I know a few MVPs that just for people that are out there to know that, like, you have to maintain that. It's an award that you get for the prior year's activity. And there are people that sometimes just say, look, I'm not doing that much in the space. And so, they just let their MVP lead know that, hey, don't even consider me. I've just not done anything that's on par with what other people are doing. And sometimes they come back and they just say, hey, we're reviewing kind of your activities and you just aren't at the level of everybody else. And so they, don't re-award you that. And so, I mean, it's exciting to see. I've interviewed one guy who I interviewed was 22-year MVP. I mean, just amazing. So it's like,
wow, right. Bam, year after year. Right. People discount that. People don't realize what it takes to get renewed year after year. I really appreciate it because I did let it go. And then, I was doing talks and all, but I didn't want to kind of like raise my hand and say, I think this is enough or anything. What it took for me recently to get renewed was the Reconnect MVP program.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Which maybe you just tell people what that is too.
Yeah, so what that is, I know, I assume like everyone knows what it is, but I think a lot of people don't.
Especially the non-MVPs are going to know what it is.
Right, that's right. That's a great point. So Microsoft reached out to all their former MVPs and said, we'd like to reconnect with you, hence the name Reconnect. They put up some profile pages, so we have a page we can point to now and say, this is what I used, my prior award. They put up a Yammer site where we can all communicate with ex-MVPs and kind of, it was a little bit of a stigma when you didn't have that MVP anymore. You're like, man, I had it, and now I don't. I'm kind of, not in the cool kids club anymore. Then we got together with all these other people, and I'm like, wait, you're in that club? And all my sort of heroes growing up are in this club. I'm like, wait, I'm not there. Okay, so it's okay that, we had other commitments and we were doing other things.
Well, right, and that's an important point too, is just like, look, the MVPs are generally, it's awarded for community things that you do above and beyond what your job description is. To kind of help the description. And sometimes, I've got a close friend who, his company came down and said, hey, look, no more blogging on your own blog. Like, it needs to be, you're paying for your time. It must be. So there's a company that's brain dead that doesn't understand influencer marketing, that got proven out. But, so he lost his MVP because everything he was doing was corporate. Look, I've got a special circumstance like a lot of independents do, is that it's my own company. So everything I do, there are things I do for clients. I don't even include those,
right?
But there's so much of the stuff that I do that is, like this series. I'm doing it because I want to connect with MVPs and get to know people and expand that network and kind of and help kind of give you guys props for what you're doing and point out other MVPs that are out there in other spaces. But there's a lot of this kind of stuff which no one's paying for this. This is because of my passion that's driving this. That's a lot of the things that you're doing. That's why you got re-awarded. So how long have you been back in the program officially?
April 1st. I got it back on April 1st. And so it's
that's always a tough date to get an award. You're like, really? Can you get a confirmation on the 2nd of April?
Right. It's like, are we sure? Who's pulling my leg here? No, but it was really exciting. Like I said, so the MVP, but even before I got it, it was almost like, okay, that's cool. It was a little bittersweet because now I got to leave the Reconnect MVP program. You can't be in both. And I had made, I'll still be able, they said I could still stay in the Yammer site, so I'll still be able to kind of chat with folks. But that was kind of part of what the Reconnect program was to do, is to kind of reach out and say, look, if you're still doing stuff, we want to know about it because we want to look at you. And I was like, well, I am still doing stuff, and I appreciate that you want to know about it. And you know what? Let me tell you about it. And I went to a couple the community centrals. I forget what they were called, but Joe Darko had one down in Florida and then one up in Philly. That was, and there's a story behind that, and we'll get into like you're starting those back, starting those in the U.S. But I think they've been fantastic, and so these regional activities where MVPs and Reconnect people have been able to come back together. I went to the one in Bellevue, and there were 3 or 4 Microsoft employees who were the community members that Microsoft poached and hired, but we're still, within their cycle, we're still technically in their year of having that MVP award, and so they were showing up at these summits or whatever they were called. Right, and it was a great opportunity to reconnect with not just former MVPs, but current MVPs,
Right.
and say, "Oh wow, what are you guys doing?" And really, the one up in Philly where I met was talking to Joe Darko. We were like, "Hey, let's." He told me about some idea he was doing a Microsoft college tour. I was like, "Well, I teach at a couple colleges. I teach at Towson University. You want to come down?" He's like, "Yes, I do." And we did that last month. I think it was St. Patrick's Day. No, it was March 14th. So he came down. He brought 8 MVPs. Dux Raymond was there. Kevin Griffith. And my students loved it. The whole college loved it. It raised my status in the college. I put that down on my MVP application. I think that was a large part of getting me back in. So it's all been great. The Reconnect program helped me out a lot. Meeting up with all these other folks, both former MVPs that, made me feel less of a stigma about being a former MVP. I felt better about it. I'm like, wow, now, it's been great. I'm really impressed with the people in the program. Joe Darko, Betsy Weber, Susie Wild.
Awesome. Well, I've known about Joe for a few years, just as one of the MVP leads. And so now we lost 2 West Coast MVP leads. Well, one of them internally, one externally, one moved over to Azure. And so now, I'm fall under Joe, which is,
I didn't know that. That's crazy. He's getting
Joe
everybody.
has a large portion of the U.S. right now. So.
He's got the whole United States.
I know. That's what I told him. I was like, I don't know what you're doing, Joe, with your power play taking over, but wow. Yeah. Well, so what else? So we were talking before we got started, kind of, your office servers and services, which is broad anyway.
I know.
And you talked about SQL and SharePoint. I mean, what's kind of got you excited? What's the latest thing that's out there across anything in the Microsoft ecosystem where you're just like, whether you're involved with a customer or not, that just you're excited about?
Well, it's interesting. I'm going to go. I take a little side note. I'm excited about all the technologies, of course. I'm a little frightened and overwhelmed with all the SharePoint extension choices, I should say. Part of my job at my day job is I've got 20 or so SharePoint developers that are all saying, how do I implement this feature? How do I implement that feature? And it's like, well, you got lots of choices, and plus, well, at the same time, I want you to learn about, the new SharePoint framework that's come out, because we're going to need that, and so they're picking up React, they're picking up, all sorts of different JavaScript libraries, Node.js, all this other stuff, and we're trying to figure out how to stay on top of everything, kind of riding a wave almost, because you don't want to spend too much time playing around with Silverlight if it's not going to be, continued. Right. Don't want to make that.
Wait, are you spending any time with Silverlight?
No.
Okay. I just want to check.
But I mean, that's the thing. When it first came out, I drank the Kool-Aid. I'm like, yeah, Silverlight. And now it's kind of like,
Yeah.
So we don't, so we're excited. We're cautious cloud. Now we're cautiously excited about all these new technologies, but how can we use them both today with 2016 on premises and possibly tomorrow when we go to the cloud? With that, because we're constantly looking at these new technologies and trying to figure out what we're doing, we've done something interesting in that we're doing community outreach with a group called Tech Girls, techgirls.org, I think is their website. But basically, it's kind of a twofold attack. We go out and we show middle school age girls how to use technology. So it's getting them interested in STEM. The organization Tech Girls have done some studies, and they've figured out right around middle school is where girls kind of lose interest. Up until middle school, they're right there with the boys, and they're interested in STEM. And then high school, they go, forget it. So we're trying to prevent that. We're out there, and we're working with a local organization, the Harford County Boys and Girls Club, 4 different locations. Every month, sometimes twice a month, we go out and we teach 20 or so girls all about SharePoint, all about Office 365, all about PowerPoint, and some other technologies too. That's been very exciting. Talk about learning stuff you didn't expect to learn. We did this one workshop with the girls not too long ago about mobile app design, and one of the girls was saying, "Well, how do I copyright this?" And I was like, "What? That's a good question. I hadn't thought about that." I mean, these girls, it's amazing what they can do, where they're thinking, and that's what's really got me excited. Is I've been doing. I do 3 different user groups. I do Mad SharePoint, Mid-Atlantic Developers SharePoint, where we have folks from not just our company but from around the area come in and talk about some of the issues they have and some things they're excited about. We do one called MACE-me, which stands for Mid-Atlantic Cybersecurity Experts, because I'm in the DoD, so we've got to have some security group. Though a lot of those tend to be SharePoint security questions. So we kind of and then what's the Baltimore Cloud? That's one I took over. It used to be down in Towson. Now we have it up our way. And that one's about, Azure, SQL Server, and all that. That one actually we just made into an official PASS chapter. PASS calls them Professional Association of SQL Server User Groups.
Okay.
So it's they call it a local group now. They used to call them chapters. Now they're local. But that means that we can, we promote the PASS organization. So those all have me excited. But the Tech Girls one, that one's really neat just because the girls are really, they're at that stage of excitement. They're just happy to create a website. They're happy to create an infographic or whatever else we're doing. It's been really rewarding. I mean, I'm just surprised. I'm shocked at how rewarding it's been with the girls and their feedback. And we've been doing that actually for 3 years now. And just recently, what was that? A local organization, the Northeast Maryland Tech Council, recognized us, gave our company an award, and said, hey, you guys have been doing a great job with this STEM community outreach. So it's been a 1-2 punch. I got that award last month, and then I got the MVP. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is,
that's very cool.
Yeah, it's been super cool. So I'm really excited about all that.
Yeah, so I'm actually just wrapping up a huge research project for the Worldwide Partner Group at Microsoft on diversity hiring strategies within the Microsoft channel, but doing a lot of the secondary research. My research team that went in and did that, and looking into a lot of the women in technology, and it's it's not just about women in technology, but it's the diversity is kind of everything that's inclusive within that. But it was really cool to find out about some of these other organizations that I had no idea about. I'm familiar with WIT and that aspect of it. But what I'd say is I've got 4 kids. My oldest is a girl, and she's in grad school in Minnesota right now. Went the STEM route. I've got 2 that are STEM, 2 that are business route kids. So very, very proud of her. But man, just a whole lot smarter than I am, and to see my kids that are just what they can do in math and science is very proud of them and that. But I've always said, ulterior motive. I want to see my daughter, my children successful, so that I can then live off of them for free. So yeah. It's part of my retirement plan.
I had the same plan. So I have a boy and a girl. The girl just accepted enrollment to University of Maryland in computer science. So she's doing the STEM thing. I actually tried not to force either one of my kids into computers, even though they saw dad, on the laptop, whatever. I was like, no, do whatever you want. Business, arts, I don't care. They both do piano. They both do cello. I'm like, do whatever you want. Darned if they didn't. It must be a geek gene. So they're both in computer science down at University of Maryland. And she was a big part of why I got into Tech Girls. The funny story is the first Tech Girls workshop we did, I made her present. So she was 16 years old. And I said, she had never presented to anyone before. And I'm like, no, it'll be great. And she connected with them so much better than some old white guy. She just the kids would raise their hand and say, "I've got a question," and I'd run over and they're like, "Well, I don't really have a question." And then Sarah, my daughter, would come over like, "Yeah, I just wanted to show you what I did." So it was really powerful stuff. So we've kind of continued that, and we try to include some of her friends. But she's leaving me this year. She's off to college this summer, or I guess next fall, and I'll have to find a replacement or something because. But eventually she'll graduate and hopefully support poor old dad. She'll remember dad from.
I've replaced my children with small dogs, so that are equally emotionally needy. So yeah,
I have to get a couple dollars.
I've got one left at home, and he's gone in the next 4 or 5 months. So
oh no! Oh my gosh! Empty nest.
Just gonna be empty, and except for the ones that show up on the weekend to eat all the food and do their laundry. So. But hey, David, really appreciate talking to you, getting to know you, and some great stuff here. And definitely, I'll share out the links of the things that you said. I'll have on screen as well as the blog post. But thanks a lot for your time today. It was great talking to you.
Thank you. It was great talking to you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.